Welcome, everybody, to the Celtics Double Take Podcast. Dylan McCaffrey and James Kwan here again today. The Boston Celtics are sitting at 11-8, although we're about an hour from tip-off against the Kings. Today, we're talking about our losses against the Spurs and Lakers and our win versus the Warriors. But first things first, as always, we have our best and worst takeaways from our last week of games, 1 minute apiece. James, you can go first.
Before I get into that, Dylan, the setup looks a little more bare bones. Just moved into a new place, so going to have to hold my mic a little bit. Bear with us, but I'm about to go on the worst. Going to start off negative. Kemba, he's been getting out of my case lately. I'm not going to lie. He's shooting 36% since he got back. He single-handedly lost us that Spurs game, in my opinion. Also, the Lakers game, he was 1 for 12 against the Lakers. It wasn't great, but we'll talk more about that later. We'll get into it when we talk about the games. Best, I know we say it every week, but Tatum and Brown, man, they show up every night. And I think the consistency is a really nice thing. It shows their development. I think especially Jaylen Brown, his consistency, it just shows he's working his ass off in the gym. And I think that's a great thing. I think I'm excited just because of those two guys. I think when we get our depth back, we go right back on track. But again, we'll talk about the Kemba situation and other things going forward.
Love that. I'll start off with the best things, other than James finally moving out of New York City, escaping New York. Best things from this week. I'm going to throw some credit to our big men for the first time all season. Daniel Tice and Grant Williams, I was really happy with the last couple games. And It's not often that I say that, so I want to give them their due in this time. And the worst for me, I like to pick different things from you, but the worst for me is Kemba. He lost us the Lakers game and very well might have lost us that Spurs game. He's getting back into it, but it's been a slow process. So we can jump right in now. We play the Spurs, Lakers, and Warriors this week. Start with the Spurs. We took a 110-106 loss to them. Like you said, like Jaylen Brown and Tatum, they combined for 49 points that night. They're on it as always, and it felt like a game that we were supposed to win. Like the Spurs have been the same team for a couple of years. Like they're not throwing anything crazy at us. DeMar DeRozan only took 8 shots and he had 21 points, and it was just, I think that we were maybe just outcoached that night. I don't know.
I mean, DeRozan's always been a Celtics killer. And the Spurs, it's in a weird way the past year, they've kind of been a little bit of Achilles heel. I have an anecdotal piece of evidence. My friends from home came to Boston. This is like a year ago. We're excited. We have Celtics tickets. We're all going to the game. Celtics, Spurs. We think we're going to blow them out. The Spurs end up blowing us out. This is the game where the guy threw the beer can from the top Raptors onto the court when Kemba got ejected. Obviously a soft move by the refs. I was completely behind it, but man, was it a bummer. And I was getting flashbacks of this game because we just couldn't shake them, and then we couldn't close them out, and then we lost. And I think in a lot of ways you missed Pritchard here because of the lack of guard depth. We could have really used, a spark off the bench. But I was going to save this for the Lakers game, but I'm just going to say it now because we already talked about how both of our worst takeaways from this past week was Kemba. And he frankly has not been good for us. We talked about it a little last week, but we forget that we brought this guy on to replace Kyrie Irving, who is, as we see with the Nets, a prolific scorer, a guy that's hard to replace. Even though he caused havoc in our locker room, he's been nothing close to that kind of player. And he shoots us out of games. This has been a thing not only this year, but even when he first got here. I used to complain to you, at Emerson, all the time about how he shoots us out of games. And dude, it doesn't matter if you it doesn't matter if you end the game 5 for 10, if you start 2 for 10. And these bad shooting nights, they affect the game immensely. And I'm going to call you guys out because you guys want to say like, oh no, he just keeps shooting. We got to stop the bleeding at some point. He's a defensive liability as well. He can't stop anything. He can't guard a parked car, which is a problem. And we're paying him $36 million this year and $37 next year. And the best ability is availability. He's not been a healthy guy. Listen, I know I'm tearing into him. He's a UConn guy. I try to love him. If you ride with Storrs, Connecticut, you ride with me. But why is he getting the last shot? Why is he this guy that we keep on thinking that he's the replacement from Kyrie when he's clearly not? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, I'm glad that you have got to hate on him because I don't like to hate on him, but he's been so disappointing. So I'm glad that you said that so I can kind of try to roll it back a little bit. He's not been good since he came back. And I saw a lot on like Instagram and Twitter and stuff this week, like all the Celtics fans that hated Kyrie, they deserve Kemba now. And I don't think that Kemba is like over dribbling or like taking up too much of the possessions. And I think the shots that he is taking are open shots. I don't think he's taking terrible shots. He's just missing all of them. like he shot us out of the Lakers game shooting 1 for 12, but he wasn't taking awful shots. The last look he got, like maybe you want to call timeout on that last possession, but I agree with what Brad said about how they got them in transition. And they got like a decent open shot, and he just can't hit it. And I know that as the season goes on, he'll start to hit those again. But it's hard because last year we're looking at the playoffs and we're like, why isn't Kemba the guy he's supposed to be? And everyone, it's the injury. It's the injury. He's not right. He's hurt. And now he's had plenty of time off. He can take as much rest as he wants. So it's not the injury now. Now it's just actually he just isn't making shots and not playing well. And that's something to be bummed about. Like, I'm sure he'll get better. But a 1-point loss to the Lakers, a 4-point loss to the Spurs, like we were on the brink of being 500 for a second. And yeah, it's Kemba's been a disappointment in his return.
Does he look healthy to you? Because I agree, he's had a lot of time off, and we bring him back. That's the whole point, giving him all this off time. But does he look healthy to you?
He doesn't, and if he's not, he shouldn't play. But if he's playing, I assume that he's either healthy or like he's the version of healthy where he just needs to like build his strength and play and get his feet under him. But he doesn't look like the guy that's breaking ankles. Like, I don't know. It's been hard. He struggles. Yeah, like I don't know, like you said, there was like a 2-month period where you were like, oh my gosh, is Kemba the MVP? And that's his peak, and we've been chasing that for a while.
I mean, I compare it to the Kristaps situation where he hurts his knee, and obviously his knee is not a good one. It's broken. Something's wrong with it. Doctors can't figure it out. But you give him the off time, and it seems like years pass by. He finally comes back, and he's right back to square one. I don't know what's up with him. Like you said, I don't like hating on the guy. And at his best, he is a top 5 point guard. But we haven't seen that version of Kemba in 2 years now. And unfortunately, we've had him for the past 2 years. I don't know where we go from here. His contract, I believe, is up after next year. Not this season, but the next one. At that point, is it too late? Like, I just feel like, not that we have a small window because we have Tatum and Brown, but this was supposed to be kind of, we assembled this team of having Kemba, having Gordon Hayward, having all these players, and we had a little bit of a window here. And I don't think it's an overreaction to say that we're kind of seeing it fade away one piece at a time. I don't know, like, if we ship him, if who's going to take him. He seems like complete damaged goods. I don't know what kind of player he's also going to be with, like you said, another offseason rest. Is this going to change the way that Kemba plays? At the end of the day, even if he picks up his shooting a little bit, he is such a liability on the defensive end. It hurts to watch. And not like he's ever been a great defensive player, but he was at least able to sidestep, kind of stay in front of people. We're seeing none of that. Like, at some point, if this continues, like, we're not going to shut him down. So are we just going to continue to lose games because our starting point guard is shooting 30% every night? Like, well, what's the move? If Pritchard was healthy, there'd be Celtics Twitter be talking about starting Pritchard.
So, yeah, Smart got hurt during the Lakers game. Thank God he didn't tear his Achilles like everyone thought he did for a second. And Pritchard's going to return soon, ideally. But, like, again, I don't want to talk about this game too much because it's going to happen in an hour. But tonight we're playing the Kings, and Kemba doesn't play back-to-backs. So we're starting, I don't know, it's going to be Carson and Draymond. Like, I don't really know what the plan is tonight. But that, like, earlier in the season when we were playing without Kemba, we were like kind of waiting for him as the reinforcement. Like, this team is good, but the best version of this team is we have like a really great playmaking point guard. And when Kyrie left, like, it was a godsend that we were able to grab Kemba and like not completely fall apart, because to go from like a team with Kyrie and Horford and Morris and Hayward and Terry and just to lose all those guys for nothing would have been very tough. And so to have Kemba as like, it was very lucky to get him. But we've been dealing with the fact that he's 30 now and he's a 5'11" point guard, and so his defense will continue to. He won't get better as the years go on, and his offense is going to apparently depend on how healthy he is and how long he can stay playing. I just looked it up, and he's signed through next year and has a player option for the year after that. So we hypothetically have him for this year and then 2 more years. I don't know. I don't want to keep hating on him because I do believe that by the end of the season, he'll be closer to where we want him to be. But when he's 32 and he's still like dealing with injuries and missing shots, it's going to be hard. That's thinking a little bit ahead of things, though. Let's talk about the Lakers game more because he was terrible. 1 of 12, 4 points, missed the game winner. He did get the steal on that possession, but he missed the game winner. But the rest of our team, I wasn't super disappointed with the loss.
No.
It was a 1-point loss to the Lakers. Jaylen Brown and Tatum combined for 58. They outscored the LeBron Anthony Davis duo, and they're like now like the official, like they're like this highest scoring duo since Bird and McHale. So they like showed out on the Lakers game. They had a great night. And Tice that night, that's what I was getting on Tice for. Tice played 35 minutes that night. He was a +8. He had 14 points. He was hitting threes. Like, he was the best version of Daniel Tice that night. And even though he was like, trying to guard LeBron and Anthony Davis and they were scoring, he did the best job of anyone on our team to be able to try and stop them. And he was a useful piece that night.
I think that the tough thing when we talk about good Tice games, we always look at the opposing center and they at least have like 28 points. I think
Anthony Davis had 27 points. Yeah,
I think he had like 27 points, and that's the problem. That's what we're going out for. But yeah, honestly, this was a solid game. It could have gone either way. Kemba 2 years ago hits that shot and we win the game. But this and the Spurs game, I mean, dude, okay, first of all, the Spurs, they've beaten the Nuggets, they've beaten the Clippers, they've beaten the Lakers. So that's a solid team. We go into the Lakers game, and we've played the best defense that I've seen so far this year, by far. Anthony Davis is going to score 27 against us. And in my opinion, I think that's actually the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I mean, LeBron didn't have the best game, and no one else in the Lakers really had a great game at all. The Smart injury, like you said, it was scary. Thank God it wasn't Achilles. In a lot of ways, and I'm going to talk about this later with the Warriors game, he's just so valuable, and it's kind of like Marcus Smart is your local CVS, because you kind of take it for granted, and then it closes down, and I'm going to compare because our local CVS closed down, and when that did happen, you realize how much stuff you go to CVS for. And then you're like, holy crap, I can't.
You hate on it. You're like, they close so early. They're so expensive, and then it's gone, and you're like, wow.
And you're like, I went here for everything, and like it was so versatile, and then you lose him, and then you find yourself in a really bad place. Overall, it's a great game. We're in that. I would have liked to see us win, but I think that Pritchard being in the lineup, I think we do win. I think we're going to play this kind of hypothetical game with if Pritchard was playing until he comes back. But it's just that guard depth. Does Kemba go 1 for 12? If maybe there's another guard to take the pressure off a little bit. Do we lose the game if maybe we have a guard that doesn't shoot 1 for 12? There's a lot of things to take into account. And, like you said, all things considered, we almost beat the Lakers. And I think that's kind of the golden standard for any of the teams in the league is, if you beat the Lakers regular season or otherwise, it's a good sign. They're the best team in the league, and we gave them a run for their money. But it kind of seems like that's the pattern, right? Like, I think a lot of our losses have been close, and this inability to close a game when we have a lead. I mean, we talk about it all year. It's just hard to do that when you don't have a little bit more depth. When you put the second unit in and you don't have Pritchard, it's kind of a bad sign for us. I know. We play the best defense, though. I know. I don't know what else you've seen from our team in this game, but there were some good takeaways. It's just I want to win that game, and it's tough that if Kemba does if anyone else misses the game winner, like, I'm not having this attitude about it.
I agree. And you talk about depth, and the depth on this team is so fluctuating because one night we have Kemba and Smart and Pritchard, like whatever, and then Pritchard goes down, Smart goes down. Now we're leaning a little bit on Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague. Is he the worst player on this team? He might be.
It's because he has, and you saw in the Warriors game, he like has moments where you're like, oh yeah,
yes,
Jeff Teague.
We were literally saying in the Warriors game when Brad Wanamaker checked him up, we was like, all right, like it's the toilet bowl right here, like, and I think that Teague outplayed him, but he's still like, I feel like the worst player on this team.
Okay, and I said this early in the year. I was disappointed. I'm like, yeah, Jeff Teague. It's not like we're getting Hawks Jeff Teague, but he looked terrible. Like he was shooting the three okay, but he could not make anything inside the paint. And
he panics. What happens? He does a little floater that back rims every time. Like, you do something else. It's crazy.
We said it early this year that he does that float in the paint, and it looks like he's shooting a medicine ball. It's like he doesn't have that feel anymore. And we brought this guy in for this exact reason. When Kemba's not healthy, our backup point guard's not healthy. We need Jeff Teague to be Jeff Teague. And what a disappointment. Another signing by Danny Ainge that is completely questionable. What did they see in this guy? I don't know if like there's other people available on the market, but dude, I would rather have Brad. I would rather have Brad because Brad plays with energy. Brad is young. Brad plays better defense. And Brad doesn't take shots that he knows he can't make. It's true. It's true. And I would rather have Brad going 1 for 2 than Jeff Teague going 1 for 7. Now,
I think that I hated Brad as much as you hated Tice, so I'm not with you there, but I understand because Teague, it's tough to watch sometimes.
yeah, but you are right. Tice had a good game, and I think in a lot of ways, this is going to be this is a sign for us in the playoffs. We know we're competitive with great teams. I think that on our best given day, we know that Tatum and Brown are scoring enough points. They're going to keep us in the game. And it's really going to be about what can our second unit do to either maintain a lead or to build upon it. And this is why I'm not exactly worried about the last, I guess, 7 games. I think we've lost, 5 of the last 7 or something like that. That when, like you said, when we get Smart back, when we get Pritchard back, we're going to have that depth. We saw in that Wizards game when Taco went off in the end. But that whole entire game was just kind of a sign of like, hey, you know what? This team might be deep when healthy, which we went into this season thinking we got nothing coming off the bench. And look what we got. So is health, is COVID, like all these little factors that come in and make us like the team we are today. If it's like us playing bad, it's a different story. I think we've kind of gotten screwed.
I'll cut Brad some slack as well because so much has happened with COVID and injuries. Like he's had to have so many different lineups. But where I stopped cutting him slack is against the Spurs when by the second quarter we played our entire roster. We had 13 guys in the rotation against the Spurs. And I feel like we have to just like in the Lakers game and the Warriors game, we did the opposite of that where it's like Brown and Tatum are getting like 39 minutes and the guys off the bench come in for like 10-minute spurts and you don't have 13 guys trying to get minutes in the game. Like most of those guys are getting less than 15 minutes. It just is weird to have like so many short spurts of guys. But I think that it's all in the effort of just figuring out who can be productive on the second unit. Grant Williams didn't play for a couple days. And then against the Warriors last night, had an awesome game. It's not like, crazy. It's 15 points. But Grant Williams is hitting step back dribble threes.
No,
he's hitting his shots.
3 was crazy. That was the best Grant Williams that we ever saw. And yeah, let's move to the Warriors game because this is a game that I don't think is close if we have Marcus Smart. I think that we had no one to guard Curry. And outside of Curry, I don't think anyone really had a great game. And that's what it boils down to is that our perimeter defense, when we're healthy, is a lot better than what we had against the Warriors. This is a lower level playoff team, right? This is like what you're going to see from an 8 seed to 7 seed. And you can see that at our worst, we still beat them. That's a good sign. I think that's where we are right now is that, where we stand, I think we're about 4th, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of accurate. I think us right now as a semi-healthy, COVID has kind of given us the run in the past couple of weeks. But as we stand right now, we're a team that is definitely better than the Warriors. It's definitely better than any of the lower level Eastern Conference teams. But doesn't that kind of put us back to where we were last year?
Absolutely. I mean, we're a very similar looking team to last year, and I think that we're still kind of waiting for that piece that with the trade exception, it's going to make us into a 1 seed. But I think that this team is capable of taking it up to another level. The Warriors game, you knew when there was 4 minutes left, and we had a 10-point lead, that it was going to be a 1-point game with a minute left. That's just the nature of us being the Celtics and the Warriors having Steph Curry is that our lead was never going to be safe. We were able to just barely outlast them there. But it's games like that where I'd love to have a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left and win by 20. Like we continued last night our trend of like playing, like running out the clock and giving up leads. And I don't know, against the Spurs, I kept waiting for us to step on their neck. Against the Warriors, it was the same thing. I don't know. It's been a long time we've been playing this way, and we almost fell to 10-9 that night.
Well, we see why I asked the question of why does Kemba have the ball late in games is because we see in games that we pull away when we give Tatum the ball at the end of the game, um, he's the one who makes plays, and that's the thing. We do lack a killer instinct. There's only one guy on our team that's a killer instinct. It's Tatum, and it's when he's at his best. When Tatum doesn't have that killer instinct, we saw that in the playoffs. We cannot close out games, and we need, like you said, we need to run through Tatum and Brown in a way that maybe they do play 39 minutes a game. Maybe we don't see what Neesmith has on a given Wednesday night. Maybe it doesn't matter. Seriously. Like maybe if Mike D'Antoni goes out in the past 5 years in Houston, plays 8 people a night and has success with it, you have to look at like playing to your strengths. Every shot that a Neesmith takes, that a Grant Williams takes, that anyone else takes is a shot that Tatum and Brown don't have. That was my argument for the whole entire Kemba situation, was that he goes 2 for 10. That doesn't just mean that Kemba has a bad game. That means that 8 shots have gone by that are misses, that are frankly just turnovers, that our 2 best players are not taking. So it's almost like 4-point plays when he misses a 2-point shot. It's just it's a harsh world, NBA. You don't want to tell your players, you don't want to tell your bench players don't take shots because we got 2 of the most talented wing players in the entire league. But that's exactly what's going on right now. So that you're right. That is where I don't cut Brad the slack. There is no reason for us to be in a close game with a 10-point lead with that late into the fourth quarter. I'm going to put it on coaching. I really am.
It's hard to pinpoint exactly what goes wrong because sometimes what we do is that maybe it's the nature of like the last couple of years having so many good players, but at the end of games, sometimes we pass the ball around so much trying to get like the best shot. And like, I feel like more so in the last 5 minutes than the entire rest of the game, we don't get a shot. Like we'll have the shot clock expire on us because like we've been dribbling for so long. And on the other half of it, we play badly. It's because like Smart or someone who's not Tatum, like you said, like tries to go ISO really quick, and we're like pulling up from 3. Like sometimes we're running at the clock, passing too much, and sometimes we're forcing things ISO. And I agree that it's coaching. We should have a last 4 minutes of the game strategy that goes through Tatum and Brown to step on their necks. I don't know.
Well, as a broader question to you, when does Tatum get that respect? Because we look at other guys, Luka, James Harden, LeBron, even Giannis, who has really no business taking that shot. At the end of a game, these teams, it doesn't matter. You throw the playbook out the window, you give it to your best player, you tell them to make a play. We had that a little bit in that tiny, 3-week stretch last year where Tatum, kind of right before the All-Star break, was having this like MVP-like tear. We gave him the ball in the games, and he hits a step back on Paul George. He has those moments. But when does he kind of demand that respect? Like how much more does this have to go on until we give him that?
I mean, do you remember the beginning of this year? Like he had in like the first week took like 3 potential game winners. He made the one against the Bucks. So I think for the last possession, he's our key guy against the Lakers. If we had called timeout, I would have liked them to draw a play for Tatum. And when he deserves the respect to just like demand the ball, I feel like it's got to be now. Like he's coming back from his COVID time off, and Jaylen Brown was cooking in that time, and Kemba is just coming back. So there is like a little bit of a mix in the pot of like, who should be getting these shots. But I do think that with 3 minutes left, like you say, it's like Luka. Like Luka's not the point guard, but Luka should be like having the control of the ball in his hands with the last few minutes of the game. And I don't know if you watched the Nets and Clippers, but in the last couple minutes of the Nets-Clippers game, 22 straight points came out of Kyrie, Harden, and KD. And in the last 3 minutes of our games, all of our points should be coming out of Brown, Tatum, and Walker or Smart or whoever we have that night. I don't know. It's right. When Grant Williams is taking corner threes in the last minute of the game, they want Grant Williams taking that shot. They want the ball out of Tatum's hands, and they've been successful at that.
Well, I think we created a situation where I shouldn't say we. It's time for the weekly, is this Danny Ainge's fault? Because this is what you do. You fail to recognize you have a guy in Tatum that is a generational talent. And yeah, you do go get Kemba. Don't get me wrong. But you pay a guy $37 million, and he's making as much as guys like Dame Lillard. and then you don't want him taking the last shot. I don't know where we step. Like what is this team? I think he's created a team that frankly does not have a clutch time identity. And it's partially due to who's getting paid more, who's supposed to be the centerpiece. He's kind of created this open-ended question that is going to last for the, like you said, the next 3 years.
No, agreed. And we're gonna have to see that question try and get answered against the Clippers this week, because we played the Clippers a couple times last. I think that our best games, like most fun games last year, were the Clippers games. Even the one
Yeah,
we lost, that overtime game with
it was a
the
good
Tatum
game.
step back, was awesome. So the Nets just barely beat the Clippers a couple days ago. We're playing them on Saturday night, and we're gonna have to see. Like, we just took this loss to the Lakers. Like, are we gonna handle the end of the Clippers game differently? Are we gonna handle things differently tonight? I hope that when we go up against the Clippers, that it's Tatum having the ball in the end, Brown having the ball at the end. Kemba's getting rest tonight, so Kemba's going to be coming off a lot of rest, and Pritchard will probably be back. That's what I'm hearing. Is that I think
Maybe.
Pritchard is going to be back
I
this
don't want to
weekend.
rush him back like we rushed back Kemba. But
True.
before we win the Clippers, I don't think we can look past the Kings. The Kings are a team. If the Spurs are like an Achilles heel team, the Kings are definitely a team that we end up losing against a lot that we shouldn't be. Buddy Hield is due for like a 40-point game every time we play the Kings, and I think it's particularly a hard team we're gonna to play without Marcus Smart. I don't know who, like you said, Kemba's not playing this game. How do we match up against De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, and Tyrese Halliburton? I have no idea. Maybe that we have like some of our wing players go out and defend their prominent point guards and backcourt because they don't really have a lot of people at the four position that you need to worry about. But I think we match up terribly against the Kings. I really do.
Yep, we play him in 1 hour. So I'm gonna put myself on a limb here, and with the uncertainty of this, and just say we're coming off a back-to-back on the road, and we don't have Kemba, and we don't have Smart. But I think we pull off a win tonight because I think we're better than the Kings. And I don't know. I like the direction this team is trending in, even though a lot of the time it feels like we're just running in place. I do think that we're seeing better nights from Grant Williams and Tristan Thompson and different guys. Against the Warriors, Tice had a plus 24, highest on the team by far. A plus 24 and a 4-point win is nothing to ignore.
Okay. I don't know. You know how
Um,
I feel about plus minus, but yeah, I mean, I think we match up better against the Clippers than we do against Phoenix, who I think we play after the Clippers. Um, we have wing guys to try to throw out Kawhi, to try to throw out Paul George. It's definitely a team, like you said, that we've always been competitive with, and I think that even with our lack of depth, like you said, just like I talk about the Kings and us not being able to defend their backcourt players, but who do the Kings really have to guard Tatum and Brown? Who are the Clippers? You're going to tire out like Kawhi and Paul George to chase Jaylen Brown and Tatum all game. It's kind of a tough question for them. Whereas Phoenix, CP3 is the perfect kind of guy to take advantage of your backcourt weaknesses. And I think Devin Booker is kind of due for an explosion game. He's kind of been disappointing so far. Maybe that trend continues. But these are solid teams. I think that, like you said, on our best night, we beat these teams. I think that if we can hang with the Lakers, if we can hang with the Clippers, but like, I don't know, what do you need to see? Like, what are the keys to beat a team like the Clippers, to beat a team like Phoenix? These are upper echelon playoff teams, and obviously something has to change.
Someone who kills us that plays for the Clippers is Serge Ibaka. And I think that a key to victory for us against the Clippers is to have our big men hopefully play better than their big men. Because their big men, what they got Serge, they got Ibaka, that's the same guy. They got Zubac, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't like that's a mismatch for us a lot of nights, but I think that we can handle them. And then if we handle them, then we look at the Kawhi Paul George duo versus the Tatum Brown duo. I feel like I have confidence in this Tatum Brown duo to outplay those two. The rest of the supporting cast, is hit or miss on that night. So I think it comes down to, are we going to out rebound them and outplay them inside, and are Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum going to outplay them? That's a little bit of the luxury, is that we're harping on the pieces of this team, like the smaller pieces, the guys that get 15 minutes, but ultimately Tatum and Brown can win us any given game. So hopefully they can win us the game against the Clippers. Clippers are the 2 seed, Suns are the 5 seed, and we play the Jazz, who are somehow the 1 seed this year. So it's gonna be a tough week. The
Yeah, for
Suns
sure.
definitely can't look past the Suns because they're way better this year. I haven't seen them play a ton, but I know Chris Paul is still Chris Paul, and Devin Booker dropped 70 on us once. So that'll
It
be a
is
fun
true.
game.
In a loss, in a loss. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just how like when Kemba was out, it was kind of like the ultimate tryout for the backcourt depth of our team. With Smart being out and with Pritchard being out, I think this is the ultimate tryout for guys like Grant Williams, like Neesmith. I'm not gonna give him a pass. Other guys need to step up. And I think that these games can really make or break people. Like, if a guy like Grant Williams continues to have 15-point games against these teams, we're a whole different team. We really are. He's a great defensive player. So, like, I view this next week as a tough stretch of games, yes, but as an ultimate tryout for a bench depth. Can they step up? Are we going to see a little bit more Taco? All questions I want to see answered.
Absolutely. Against the Jazz, I got to tell you, I haven't watched a single Jazz game this year, but they're the 1 seed.
They look
So
good. No, they look good for sure.
I think that the Jazz and Suns, more so than the Clippers, are 2 teams that just like they want to win every game. Like they like are like the Heat last year, where it's just a group of guys that are scrappy and want to win and will find ways to win. So the Clippers like have more firepower, but they have a history of choking, obviously. So it's going to be 3 tough games. Can't underestimate any of these opponents, but we're getting back into it. We're going to have another full strength lineup minus Smart for these games. I don't think that any of these are a back to back. So hopefully this week goes well.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
That is going to do it for us this week on Double Take Celtics. You can subscribe on iTunes at Celtics Double Take, or go find Double Take on YouTube. For extra credit, you can follow the Double Take Show on Instagram. James, you got any last words?
I know New England fans are out there. Bet on the Bucks. I'm telling you, Tom Brady's going to pull this one out.
Super Bowl week. James, welcome back to New England. Glad to have you. Escape from New York. Love it. Go Celtics. We'll see you next week.
All right, take care.